Yeah, I mean, Mista is not here for like majority of the year, like 8, 9 months. And I actually looked up recently like his stats with a lot of other players, including myself, and I only played him twice in start of the game as well. So he's definitely, he comes from time to time, beats up noobs, and then he goes back to farming.
Jumping into game number one here, we have Vortix with the English in blue and Mista popping out the Malians in red.
Yeah, Vortix. Actually, he's not playing that much English recently. In the previous tournaments, except on like maybe hybrid maps. But he used to play a lot of English earlier in the days of A4. Like that was one of his go-to civs, I would say, because he loved the longbow spearman, pushes. And it's cool to see him play it once again in a different format, but go back to one of his, I would say, most standard civs.
No surprise early on, he's going up with the Council Hall. Other side, Mista opts to go with the Monster Quarry. But are you surprised that we're only seeing 3 villagers build that landmark for Vortix? He's mining stones, so he's going to play additional TCs. What do you think about this approach?
So I've seen. So I haven't played as much Empire Wars as these guys obviously have, but from some of the practice I've seen between Vortix and Lucifron, they really prioritized early on, like second TC into castle rushes, because they felt early on that there's not enough time in feudal to put on like enough aggression and kind of punish your opponent. But I think second TC, just because you have so many villagers, you can boom to second TC quite easily. Some civs can even allow for 3 TCs if you'd like to. And well, Malian is kind of expected to do a cow boom like in normal matches, but especially here because it's so easy to just go, double mill and just get the cows going.
Speaking of which, he's already producing cattle. But one thing I'm kind of disliking about Mista's map is how exposed those additional gold mines are. Essentially, all but one is pretty much out in the open, and even the one to the far east of the map, that's something that's going to be difficult to defend.
Yeah, quite exposed, but it's funny to see because he's already cow booming, and Vortex is going for that double TC that I just mentioned. So he's just going to boom extremely hard, and this leads me to believe, oh, there we go, double TC, and both on the golds, by the way, both near the gold. One is kind of protecting the woodland, so not even opting for the deer. So he might, just based on the TC placements, he might just opt to play more safe and just grab the gold and rush castle. Because I'm not sure why you wouldn't, just grab the deer. They're actually behind his base. But yeah, I think going for aggression in feudal after triple TC basically it's going to be pretty difficult just because the amount of food that you need to, produce the villagers alone, not the army combined with it.
Yeah, in Empire Wars, you do start with those farms out there for Vortex, so that's
Mhm.
definitely some help. Mista will scout the second TC, but he's yet to find the third. He saw the stone mine, though, so he should know that there is enough stone for Vortex to have a third TC.
Yeah, we do see Mista coming with javelin throwers. He's going to be the one putting pressure. And so far, we don't see any units in production from Vortex. So he basically has two options, right? Because Mista is the one being aggressor. Mista is on Cowboom. And Cowboom is great, but Cowboom versus triple TC is not really a fair game for the Malians. So Vortex either will start to make units and defend, or he will just completely ignore this and try to rush castle with 0 units.
Vortex, losing track of this one scout here, gets picked off quite easily. Javelin thrower is now moving in from Mista. He isn't going to find much value to the north, though.
Yeah, and Vortex is doing what I mentioned earlier that I have seen the Spanish brothers do. So the way he plays these town centers will protect his gold no matter which side you're coming from. And if he was to place one of the TCs on deer, one of the sides of the gold would be accessible to the javelin throwers, and you can see him placing farms between all three of them. He's getting his eco upgrades, and he's kind of just saying, yeah, you can go around my base, but there's not much you can go for.
There's just nothing there for Mista to find. He was able to push away a couple of villagers from the farms, but that's basically all that he could accomplish. He's setting up the cattle behind this, as we've seen numerous times with the Malians recently. These javelin throwers could be annoying on a wood line, though.
Yeah, and we see, I think that's 3 workers on the wood line, so he is really just... oh no, there's more. He's really not interested in producing units. The interesting thing is he is getting Steeled Arrow, and he's not doing this because he's about to produce mass longbows. He is doing this because he wants that if javelin throwers do dive TCs, so he has that +1 damage on the town center to, you know, get the javelin throwers to kind of move away and repel them a little bit. But I think he will just be going straight to castle. And if he also opts with the TC landmark, that is going to be like very, very strong economically because it's going to be 4 town centers against 1 TC Kaboom.
We've seen Lucifron play English against, I think it might have been Malians as well in the first series of the day. He opted to go with the White Tower. We'll have to see if Vortix goes for the TC landmark. Could be a little overly greedy, but so far Mista hasn't been able to do much damage to him.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely might be. And Vortix, we see, so like you mentioned, he lost 1 scout. He's sending the second one because it's very important to know what Malian wants to do. If he sees like a bunch of stables, which is usually what you see from Malian, but he needs to kind of see what the opponent is doing to know how to prepare for it. And if he thinks that maybe the opponent is going to be too aggressive or too committed, maybe he just, yeah, you know what, White Tower, yeah, and there it is. He says probably, you know, I'm triple TC, I'm in a good spot, so why not just put White Tower, make it impossible for my opponent to dive and just play pretty safe from here on out. Because the longer the game goes, this is a matchup that you don't want to play against English in the late game. So the longer the game goes, the better it is for English.
That White Tower also makes it impossible to place farms right next to that mill.
Yeah, the farms are going to have to pause on that one. But, you know, he has a bunch more space to go with. And interesting enough, I think that I saw Mista building barracks and not stables. So... he will not be trying to kind of just run in with sofas and overwhelm his opponent, but instead he's going for Musafati warriors, which we have seen him do in other series against other civs. So he looks like he's a big fan of Musafatis.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it was Lucifron who first went for like a mass Musafati approach back in Call to Arms. It has gotten some popularity recently, that's for sure. And given that Vortix is playing into Knights, that's actually a good setup for Mista.
Yeah, he's going to use a couple of knights, and I like this. He's using the White Tower as, you know, like a double stable. Basically, production. He's going to chase these javelins away. Maybe he's going to start to try to pick up some relics. Knights are always good to get some map control. But he is going to need to scout, if he hasn't already, what exactly he's playing against, because Mista seems that his plan... Okay, there we go. The scout sees the triple barracks, he sees Musafatis, and he sees a lot of them. So this is not like few Musafatis. So he should know that longbows are a must, and then most likely either go men-at-arms or maybe horsemen or knights is going to be his go-to composition.
Yeah, the moment he sees the Musafati warriors, he clicks the veterancy upgrade for the longbows. He does have the council hall to produce those on. It looks like he also dropped the monastery, so he's looking to pick up some relics as well. Mista is walled back at home, so these knights won't be able to raid that much, though.
Yeah, and I think right now, I think Vortix is in a super comfortable spot where he's like, you know what, I got my White Tower. Musafatis are not very good at diving, you know, TCs nor towers. So Vortix just needs to not take massive amounts of damage now, even though Mista has so many units, but Mista is very committed. He's only on 1 town center. And Vortix is on 3. He already has farms going. We do see knights coming in, which are going to cause some issues. And Vortix obviously has really good micro. So these knights are not just going to die to like 3 Musafatis because Vortix forgot them. So they're going to be quite problematic, I think, to deal with now that they're in the main base.
Yeah, just 4 knights, but that space being left out on the front here for Mista from his walls means that those knights will just now rampage his eco. He's going to have to constantly chase them around, and you see he has to pull all the gold miners from this gold mine as well. It's not just the casualties, but also the idle time that these knights are able to force.
Yeah, and Mista's army, you can see half of it is in the middle, half of it is in the base, and this is one of those things that maybe he wanted to just go for a massive timing, but these knights being in the base kind of mess everything up. You know, you can't just leave 3 units. It's 3-4 knights. You know, a couple of Musafatis are not going to take care of them, so he needs to pay a lot of attention on them, and you can see him kind of pulling back a little bit, maybe gathering more troops before trying to go for it again.
Yeah, Vortix engaging against the javelin throwers over here will likely clean up at least some of these troops before he himself gets taken down here. He needs to keep that scout alive, though. That's the only scout he has for vision. He's going to lose that in this very moment. Has another one queued up, though. Just goes to show how much he values vision, and as you kind of alluded to previously, how critical it is to have that vision and that insight into what the Malians are doing.
Yeah, and you can see he actually threw down stables, and he is still producing knights. So he will, he will say like, you know what, you're gonna go Musafari Javelin, it's fine. I'm gonna go for longbow knight or maybe even horseman later. And I think that that unit comp favors English because it's a lot harder to micro from Malian side, right? Because as English, you just A-move your longbows, maybe you run around the knights around Musafaris, but as Malians, you actually have to target fire with javelins onto longbows. You have to be careful not to overkill. So I'm liking this position for Vortix quite a bit more.
And both sides committing some effort to collecting relics. First one already in for Mista. First one for Vortix is on the way home. It looks like things have slowed down here a little, but behind this, Vortix has built up a massive economy here. Mista essentially half the eco, at least in terms of villager count, than what we have for Vortix. Of course, he does have the pit mines and the cattle working for him.
Oh, and Vortix might be getting himself into a little trap. I don't think Mista expected this. He moved part of the army to the north side, and I don't think Vortix is aware of it yet. He does not see the units coming from behind, and he's going to get sandwiched and lose quite a lot of units here.
Beautiful sneak with the Musafari warriors. They weren't seen by Vortix. Now gets wrapped around. Knights will have to disengage from this one. Most of them will be taken down. Longbows have to flee as well as the Musafaris chase. Javelin throwers as well, inflicting heavy casualties here on Vortix. Lovely engagement here by Mista. Beautiful wrap using the stealth ability of the Musafaris.
Yeah, I think Vortix may be moving a bit too soon. Maybe not realizing how many units were out on the map. I mean, he did lose the scout as we mentioned earlier. But again, this is just... I feel like the unit comp for English is just so much nicer to micro and play around with. But he's going to go for another surround with a lot of Musafaris.
This time around, you don't have a massive amount of knights for Meat Shield. Once again, they jump on the longbows, and Vodka is showing us the perspective of Vortix over here. Vortix does not see those Musafaris until they are right in the face of those longbows. And now Javelin is also doing a great job pushing back those longbows. Heavy switch into barracks over here from Vortix as a response to this.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he's not throwing down a tower. Like, that would just help so much with these kind of surround attempts, and also make sure he has the network buff on his units. And he keeps trading here, Vortix, but right now Mist is producing more units. So I feel like these kinds of trades, while they're all right, he might get overwhelmed at a point where he just has way less units, and it's not about, units being stronger or weaker, but he's just going to have way less. And he will be going into men-at-arms, which is interesting considering... I guess he's doing it because of the archers, but there's so many Musafaris already out.
It's also going to be poison arrow archers already, and Mista, he's not messing around. He is imping with the Griot Bara, also flanking to the north with the Musafari warriors. You feel like he's found himself a lot of momentum here off the back of that previous fight.
Yeah, he definitely has the map control right now. It's kind of what he does with it, because he's the one that has to do pressure. Like I said, the longer this game goes, it favors English more and more. And Vortix is already to 124 villagers, which is quite a crazy amount. We do see some sneak attacks happening, but the tower is going off, and those Musafaris are definitely in vision of the tower, because the tower did the sound, but I don't think Vortix noticed it.
Yeah. This is Vortix's perspective, folks. He's got no idea until the Musafaris show up. They run past the villas, but they still get a couple of kills over here. Quick reaction from Vortix means that he minimizes these casualties, though.
And Mista just saw that, Vortix just saw that Mista did age up, and Vortix is trying to force a fight. The unit count is very close to one another. This is the first time that their unit count is almost identical, except Vortix has a much stronger army. And he probably wants to fight now before the Imperial upgrades hit in.
Yeah, not all of the army for Mista is actually here, though, and Musafati numbers are kind of lacking over here against these knights.
Oh.
Men-at-Arms also joining the fun, and the Musafatis, they just commit to killing the Vils. Vortix is losing quite a few on the gold mine, but at the same time, those Musafatis are needed so much in this engagement. Men-at-Arms starting to turn things around here in the favor of Vortix.
And Vortix is target firing the Musafatis at the front, so now we have javelin throwers and archers versus, what is it, 5 or 6 barracks men-at-arms coming through. And men-at-arms are really, I mean, they're the hardest unit for Malians to kill, which is why usually that unit is the go-to against Malians. So you can see so many archers and javelins just shooting, and they're just not doing a lot of damage. And behind that, you have so many longbows just dealing massive amounts of damage.
Vortix barely lost a villager. He's still at 124, so those Musafati warriors, they really just died for nothing almost.
Yeah, and you can see Musafatis are just getting picked off. Even though they're Imperial, they're getting picked off super, super quickly. And now we see horsemen being mixed in as well. He has 2,000 food per minute, Vortix does, so he can pump out a lot of horsemen, a lot of men-at-arms, and longbows at the same time.
At least imp upgrades are in for those Musafati warriors, but they are still so fragile. And there is just not enough javelins now to deal with all these longbows. Only 7 of them on the field. Vortix with almost double the army now, pressing onto this gold mine. Mista has to evacuate this. And you kind of highlighted this before. It could come down to numbers over quality. That's what we are seeing now.
Yeah, and this is, by the way, what you mentioned earlier regarding golds. This is his only gold that he is mining from right now. So getting pushed away from it is really, really bad. We see him going down to the bottom side. But if Vortix just decides, you know what, I'm going to go there, there's nothing that Mista can really do because his army supply is almost 1/3 of Vortix's.
Population just looking grim for Mista. 74 population against a near pop-capped Vortix ready to go into Imperial. He's going to place the Berkshire Palace right in the middle as well. Gives him a very powerful strong point here in the middle of the map.
Yeah, he doesn't care about denying goals on the side because English is stronger in Imperial, so he doesn't, you know, he's not playing the long game like I'm going to deny a goal. He just puts it on the middle because he wants an easy reinforcements point because he knows, okay, my army's stronger. All I got to do is keep pushing, keep forcing the fights, and the game is going to, you know, be in a pretty good position, which is why he's Berkshiring kind of nothing, right? There's no resources there, but he doesn't need resources. He's going to try to end the game as fast as possible.
He's been taking these fights without the network of castles aura even. If he had that if he had the aura expanded, these fights would be even more so one-sided for Vortix.
Yeah, and we see Mista kind of preparing a little bit, you know, trying to maybe surround. Some units did go in stealth there, so that they are going to be on a pretty big cooldown. We do see Scout coming out, so Vortix rebuilding the Scout, and I think the one surprise thing that Mista is going for him, the stealth, is also not going to be working out this time.
It's also heavy longbows for Vortix now. Against mostly light infantry, though, Musafati warriors are. He might try to wrap from 2 sides. He's got some of his army to the south, some to the north, but it feels like the quality is just not there for Mista. His units are not meant to deal with longbows.
Yeah, and you can see Vortix, you know, pushing in. I think Mista saw the Scout, by the way, so he is running away. He wants to fight with stealth. He doesn't want to fight without it. He will try for a massive surround, but this is going to be it. If this doesn't work, he's going to be in a world of trouble.
Here it comes, beautiful surround over here, but the Musafati warriors, they just get picked apart so quickly here. Numbers are dropping very rapidly for Mista. Javelin throwers doing their best to just deal with the longbows, but Mista is going to have to call these forces off here with heavy casualties. A very cost-effective fight this was for Vortix once again.
Yeah, for sure. And now the elite upgrades for Vortix are kicking in, by the way. This whole fighting was in castle units for English versus Imperial for Malians, and that's how the fights went. Now they're on equal playing field regarding upgrades. We don't even have incendiary arrows yet for Vortix, which is going to make these longbows so much better.
Oh yeah, I don't think he has volley even. He doesn't even have any of the blacksmith upgrades from him either. He could improve this army even more.
Yeah, and you know, Mista is trying to get us around, but this is the thing with Malians when you go for these kinds of unit comps. You know, Sofas, for example, if they were to win this engagement, they can go on to, you know, do some raiding, they can help fight the horsemen, but Musafatis are kind of one-time engagement type of units where you go in, you can't really run out, and Mista calls GG.
There it is, Vortix leveraging the English, taking game number 1 here. A matchup that we've seen numerous times, and frankly, so far, it seems to be English favored here in Empires at War. Malian is just unable to punish this 3TC rapid eco expansion.
Yeah, so like when you play, standard AoE 4, this matchup, I would say is also English favored, but the time that you have to kind of do damage to English with sofas, with javelin throwers is much larger, like that window. But in Empire Wars, because the economy scales up so much faster, I feel like your timing as Malians against English is much smaller. And you saw it early on how Vortix just kind of stood back waiting to build up an army, and then eventually he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go now. And you could see that the Malian army can't really contest, especially because Vortix was on 3,000 centers. So his economy was just scaling much more, while Mista just stayed on that one TC and just kind of massed units and try to overwhelm the opponent.
Yeah, just look at this graph here. Numbers have always been there for Mista, but they just evaporate in a blink of an eye. It's just, especially when you're full Musafari, they just die so quickly. But speaking of big masses of units, we might have some more of that as we head into game number 2 with the Ottomans facing off against the Delhi.
Wow. All right. I love Delhi. I gotta say, I think Delhi is one of the more fun and probably most fun civs to play for me. I think they got a lot of unique stuff going, and again, another civ that Vortix loves as well. He plays Delhi a lot, um, and I think that I wouldn't expect them necessarily to play it exactly like English in this one, because you don't usually go for triple TC Delhi and to be like, yeah, I'll just play Imperial. It is what it is. But also Basin is one of those maps where Delhi was extremely popular back in the day when it was playing, and not much changes. You have a safe sacred site in your base, and then you have a middle sacred site. So if you contest that, you kind of have two sacred sites going for you. Even though you might not get sacred site victory, you're still going to get a lot of gold.
So, going into this game, one of the big questions I have for you, we've seen Delhi being played today with Dome of the Faith. How do you feel about it? Should this be a Dome of the Faith game, or should this be Tower of Victory facing off against the Ottomans?
So it depends a lot on his plan. Now, there's been discussion which landmark is better in general. I'm personally Tower of Victory kind of Delhi, but a lot of people love the Dome of the Faith. Now, I feel like Dome is better if your build is maybe, I'm going to make some units take the Sacred Sites and go Castle, or, try to go into a longer game. But if you want to make, the standard feudal army or even castle early on, like massive armies, I do think that Tower Victory is better because the archers with attack speed are just so much better than having your scholars, cost a little bit cheaper and you produce more of them. So I personally think that Vortex, if he's fighting in feudal, he's definitely going to go for Tower Victory. But I think both are viable. It's just kind of what he prefers, I guess.
Both of these players are undefeated with these civilizations. Vortex 2-0 with the Delhi so far in Empires at War. Mista 2-0 with the Ottomans. Someone is going to lose that streak today. So remains to be seen if it's going to be Vortex or Mista, but this was the first home map of Mista. His other home map is actually Tempe, not a map that we see there frequently. Vortex opted to go with Canal and Cavasan, some more popular tournament maps.
Yeah, I'm a bit. I mean, for Vortex, I think any map of his is going to be something that he has played before and something that Mista has not played before. And Canal and Kawasan are definitely not the maps that Mista has a lot of experience in.
And heading into game number 2, we have Vortex with the Delhi Sultanate spawning into the north of Basin. Down south, it is going to be Mista playing as the Red Ottomans. Minimap is a little weird here, I see. Some purple dots surrounding the buildings of Vortex, but not to be afraid. That's definitely not units from Mista just yet.
Now they're just doing their little scouting around. Where is the? Can we see the military school? Is it in the back from Mista? Okay, well, that's actually, I mean, okay, decent positioning, I guess. I think you'd prefer at least to have it in the back in Empire Wars than in the front. Because then that can sometimes be a little problematic. And we do see Tower of Victory. I mean, I think that kind of says that he will go for archers. Because you don't really go Tower of Victory for spearmen, you know, or even men-at-arms. It's not like you can just make men-at-arms and win the games, right? So I think this is going to be some kind of archer base play from him.
Mista's got some spearmen over here, but they won't really be able to accomplish much with archers coming out soon from Vortix. So, looking at this setup, especially with how delayed Mista's minaret is compared to Vortix's age up, what's the plan here for Vortix? Are we just going to see him go very aggro, trying to punish Mista before Mista can build up a force? Or are we going to see a slightly slower paced approach from Vortix?
So far, okay, we do see archer ranges and spearmen. So it looks like he will not be going for Ghazi Raiders. In this matchup, actually going Ghazi Raiders doesn't make much sense. Because if you enter this rock, paper, scissor kind of army, where it's like spearman, archer, and then cavalry, Sipahi are, in my opinion, way better in this matchup because of that fortitude ability and their longer range. So maybe Vortix just says, you know what, I'm not going to do Ghazi Raiders. We'll just skip that part, and I'm just going to mass units and try to force fights. And obviously, Tower of Victory is going to work great with those. So I think that's going to be his go-to plan. Now, I think his plan is also obviously going to be get sacred sites, and that third sacred site is pretty far away from Mista's base, and also it's across the wood line, so that's very nice for Vortix. I think it's more on Mista to decide, is he going to attempt some kind of castle rush? Is he going to attempt for 2 TCs, or is he just going to fight it out?
For now, he's focusing heavily on the techs. He has gotten 3 scholars out. Well, he's got 3 scholars in total. And it looks like he's going to have wheelbarrow in a second. Has a blacksmith out already too. Not much of an army. He actually went for one of each production building. He's got a Ghazi Raider coming out already. He's got some archers, he's got some spears. Kind of a mix of everything so far.
Yeah, I wonder if he will choose to maintain Ghazi Raider production fully, or is this just as I want to force the Ottoman to make spearmen as well, just so I can have, I can lean into archers and kind of win that way. The interesting thing is, in Empire Wars, you start with 3 scholars, right?
Yep.
So he didn't make a single one. So he just got gold for the age up and then just went straight into just pure unit production. So very, very fast units. And you can see him arriving, and it's already 17 versus 9 units. And he's going to be denying that gold, which Mista was trying to get quite a bit of.
Yeah, that gold mine is definitely exposed here for Mista, and it's not like he has any good backups. In fact, all of the possible backups are worse than what we have here. It's not like Mista needs a lot of gold right now, but it limits his options quite a bit, that he basically has no access to any gold pile right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be super easy for Vortix. By the way, Mista's second gold is right there as well. Beyond the first one, so it's going to be really easy to see for Vortix, like, oh, okay, he's getting gold or he's not getting gold. Because sometimes if the gold is in the back, you're not quite sure, like, is my opponent being sneaky and rushing castle? Is he staying in feudal? But this is going to be really nice for Vortix, because every time he pokes, he'll be like, okay, you're not gathering gold, I'll go back, or I'll decide to fight. It's kind of up to him, but the unit count just keeps increasing for Vortix.
He's building up an army, and he's doing so much more rapidly than Mista is able to. He's yet to capture sacred sites. Once he does that, he is going to have the extra resource income from those as well. And he also has blacksmith upgrades finishing by now, so not only will he have the numerical advantage, he's also going to have a quality advantage.
Yeah, and it seems like Vortix is kind of keeping a little bit low on the spearmen, so he definitely wants to do Ghazi Raiders and archers, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. Ghazi Raiders still very strong. They hit very, very hard. Now the question is he going to capture a third sacred site, build a market, and then buy food and wood and just kind of go for it? Is a classic feudal Delhi style. Or at any point, he might decide, you know what, I'm not going to spend gold, and you stop producing units for, a minute, and then you can suddenly age up, and you put Mista in a really, really uncomfortable position.
Yeah, for now he's just posturing outside the base of Mista, but he's even able to capture this sacred site close to Mista's base, which is something that just speaks for the amount of map control that the Vortix has right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a rough situation. Now we're going to see a couple of villagers potentially go down. That's one, that's two. And, you know, that might not seem like a lot, but, you know, together with 3 sacred sites as well, he is gaining leads wherever he can.
Big fight coming up here. Metter is buffing the Ottoman army as the Sipahi also launch a counterattack. This is a good raid by Mista, but inside his own base here, the Metter is actually on the front line, gets picked off by the Spearman and the Ghazi Raiders. There goes the attack buff for Mista's army, and the Lumberjacks are also dangerously exposed. Looks like Vortix will call this assault off, but he managed to pick off that valuable Metter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very surprised he stayed there for as long as he did. Like, under the TC, 12 villagers were inside shooting. But he actually traded out, I feel like, better. He caused a lot of idle time on his on the enemy workers. So we see gold stacking up. So if we see gold suddenly disappearing, then he is buying food and wood, and he is going to commit fully in feudal. If the gold stays up, he might decide to age up, but the food income is not actually looking too great. Only 600 for Vortix, which is pretty low for Delhi at this point.
Yeah, his food villagers were pressured by the Sipahi. He had to idle them for quite a while, and he just had to relocate them to the east. Now he's stable, though, and frankly, he has 3 sacred sites under his control. That's as good as it gets for a Delhi.
Yeah, and we see gold going down, but he did build 3 scholars. So he is not deciding to purchase food with it. He's deciding to add more scholars, so he's going to go up to 6. And considering his upgrades are done, right now I'm feeling with the amount of Ghazi Raiders queued up and everything, I think he will try to hold the sacred sites and force his opponent to come out. And he will probably use scholars to just fight with them.
Yeah, that would be a lovely call here. As long as Mista is trapped inside his base, Vortix has 3 sacred sites, and he's also able to shut down his opponent's gold mining. If he tracks this game out, Mista is going to have access to that gold mine, and he can maybe turn things around.
And here we go. Sacred site is being contested. Vortix is kind of not looking too bothered. Like, he's not really in position to contest it yet. We'll see if he decides to go for it. But at this point, if his goal was to keep his opponent in feudal, he's definitely succeeded in it because Mista is nowhere close to castle. But if you look on Vortix's side, this is what I was talking about. Delhi can just stop making units and age up very quickly. And he's only 500 foot away, 400 now from aging up.
Stealth Forest hiding the forces of Mista over here. Vortix needs to be cautious around there, but he does have a scout. Sees the trap that has been set up for him. Has to fall back because that's a sizable force coming out from Mista.
Yeah, and this is the moment where if you're Mista and your opponent is running away after having the map control advantage, that is very, very suspicious. Like, something is going on, because if your whole idea was to build this massive army, why are you running away now, right? Shouldn't you want to fight? And we see Mista recognizes that and starts to raid. He's not staying on the middle. He's not worried that Vortix is going to fight him because he recognizes, okay, he's not actually fighting. He might be aging up. He's moving towards that gold, and he will actually run straight into that age 3 landmark if he continues, but he actually turns around just before he notices it, which was pretty lucky for Vortix, because that would have been a couple of villager lost at least.
He also missed the big pack of berries. I think Vortix had like a dozen villagers on those berries. Missed the turnaround at the worst possible time, missed the opportunity to do some damage. Now Castle Age is in for Vortix, but of course it takes some time for the Delhi to grab those upgrades, and this is what Mista wants to use here.
And I mean, this is why he went for the 6 scholars. He was not choosing to fight with them. He's going to try to pick up relics, and he's going to try to get the feudal upgrades, and he can also produce knights now, which we saw more stables coming up.
Sipahi have been detached from the main force here. Vortix slowly mixing in some spears. Archer is now diving deeper and deeper, though. And Mista, as Vortix has, I think he's got no gold income. That's not so significant for us right now, as he's looking to take this fight here. Vortix has his army split into 2 halves, though. The Spearmen getting picked apart way too easily by these archers. And at the same time, Lancers are being mixed in on the side of Vortix, but he still needs to wait for those Castle Age upgrades. Castle Age upgrades that are so far away.
Now, this is very dangerous, by the way, for actually Vortix if he doesn't pick off Janissaries. Janissaries are really, really strong here, and he actually picks, I think, all of them except one. There's one left because they actually destroy cavalry incredibly, especially like once you're in feudal and you just pop 8 of them. They're super, super strong. All the Janissaries go down, and now it's looking a bit scary for Vortix, but if he gets a couple of knights out more, he's going to be more than fine holding this, and Mista is put in a complete all-in position, which is why he's pushing this hard, right? Someone might be wondering, why doesn't he just go back? Well, if he goes back, he's nowhere close to age up, so if he goes back, he will get raided by the knights and probably lose the game in the end.
Yeah, he's been fighting under that town center for the last 20-30 seconds, and he had the matter on the front line. It was picked off early on. The second portion of this fight was without the matter, and for Vortix, he always had the buff of the Tower of the Victory, and that's part of the reason why he was able to repel this. Now, Mista looking like he's in a tough spot. His army reduced to a very small quantity of Sipahi and some archers, and he's essentially stuck in Feudal Age.
Yeah, and this is, so Delhi versus Ottoman, you know, Delhi has some timings like this reaching castle, but there's a point where Delhi runs out of food, and because Ottomans have the twin minaret landmark, they actually use way less food. They also have the vizier point, it gives you food, it gives you sheep. So if we look at the minimap, Mista is just now going on the deer, right? And Vortix, the only food that he has accessible is on the left side. There's a berry patch he's probably not touched, and he's trying to wall off this top side so you can get some deer and trap the Sipahi. But Delhi will run out of food first. So usually, if this was some other civ, maybe Vortix would be pumping knights. He would go across the map. But if you look, he's only produced 1 extra knight since Mista left his base. So his unit production is almost just non-existent. And if you look at the income, it's very bad right now.
Yeah, his gold miners have been pushed away, so... And his food eco isn't spectacular either. In fact, it's very disappointing. Mista is going to find these exposed berry villagers as well. And Vortix, he is having an upper hand going into Castle Age, but Mista is doing a great job just denying resources and making it very difficult for Vortix to get those premium units out.
Yeah. So Vortix is running into some food problems. He definitely needs to secure the food. Like, he either needs to stand there with his whole army or maybe make some spearmen to alleviate these raids. But he is taking quite a bit of damage, and Mista is doing a very good job of delaying the counterattack with like castle upgrades and everything. He's super close to aging up. He is getting raided, but he's not taking too much damage considering how long Vortix has had knights. He's lost, I think, 3-4 workers is there. Oh, maybe more. But Mista did a very good job buying himself more time. And like I said, Vortix is struggling really, really bad. And he's getting raided at the berries once again.
Mista did buy a lot of time for himself. And now he's ready to go up to Castle Age. Gets a beautiful raid going. Vortix bleeding a lot of villagers now, having lost 12 in this game already. Village Fortresses getting close to completion, though. That could be his ticket back into this game at this point, because now Mista is going to be on the way to Castle Age himself.
Yeah, and he's gonna put himself in a pretty good spot. Like I said, this matchup always comes down to who runs out of food first. And he just went on those deer. He has 2 deer packs and another berry patch and twin minaret. And Vortix, once his food runs out, especially because he did take some villager losses, will struggle a little bit setting those up. And Mista just needs to, just age up, not take any severe damage right now, and just kind of upgrade his units and continue pressuring these food sources.
Istanbul Observatory, or Istanbul Imperial Palace, actually, finishing just now for Mista. And he's got a healthy resource income, not as good as it is right now for Vortix, but he does have the military schools working for him as well. And once again, he gets a good raid going here. This berry patch has been so painful for Vortix to hold.
And he's losing more and more villagers. Mista not targeting fire there, fighting against knights with the fortitude. So knights are doing like incredible amount of damage. And we see Mista as he's running. He's just trying to buy time for his upgrades to finish. And the Janissary production has started. And this is the point where I feel like if Vortix doesn't do quite a bit, the longer this goes, the Janissaries will come out, the Mangonel will come out, and the Knights and Archers are going to be quite easy to deal with. But Vortix is hitting a pretty good timing before the upgrades, and he's trying to trade as much as possible.
Yeah, Mista's numbers are disappearing over here. He doesn't really have a response to these Knights. Only a handful of Janissaries available. He's being pushed by the veteran archers. I don't think Mista has veterancy himself. Now that difference in tech is starting to show, and Mista gets pushed away from the gold mine. Uh-oh, he could be in trouble here. His army is disappearing.
Yeah, the Knights are getting in, and you can see the moment Vortix restarted his food count, there was just so many Knights all of a sudden. He went from like 3 Knights to 16 in a matter of like 1 minute, because he also had Scholar in every stable just producing. And that was the one timing that I think the Vortix had, because if Mista managed to get the veteran archer upgrade, he managed to get like 10 Janissaries, and you know, one Mangle comes out from or actually he went the other landmark, but if he produced one Mangonel even, that would have been really hard for Vortix to deal with, because he was on the timer with all the food running out.
Yeah, lovely way for Mista to get back into this game, at least for a brief moment, but ultimately Vortix secures this game. He had 3 sacred sites for quite some time in Feudal, beat his opponent to Constellation. You see, Mista really had to almost all in that fight that he took under the TC of Mista, or under the TC of Vortix, and after that, his army was just never the same.
Yeah, it was very back and forth. Like Mista, I think, did a very good job of being like, okay, I need to buy myself time. I'll do some raids, but I think he just didn't set himself up, I guess, back at home, because that counterattack did just so much damage that, again, if he survived for another minute, got a couple of his upgrades, got some Janissaries, he would have been in a really nice spot. But Vortix, you know, attacked exactly when he needed to, and managed to get the win.
So Mista will take us to the map that we don't frequently see in tournaments. Tempe it is. Rus versus Abbasids. Now, given that this is not a map that we see frequently, I think this is where I have to channel your insight for this map. How do you feel about this map? What are the things that we need to pay attention to going into Tempe?
I think it's a pretty boomy map. Like it reminds me, I mean, it is kind of like Altai, right? But it reminds me quite a bit like Altai, but more open version. It's like a weird mix of like Lipani and Altai, where your base is kind of usually spawned pretty well. You got some easy walls happening, so it can be a very boomy map, but there's not a lot of resource in your immediate vicinity of your base, so you kind of need to go out for food. So you can play aggressive, but the one interesting thing about this map, unless they change it, this map has 4 boars. So playing a Rus here, not only you get the boars and you get so much food, but you also get all that bounty that we all know and love. So I think for Vortix, it's going to be very easily to set up a couple of extra TCs. So I'm not too worried that he's going to take some severe damage, or, you know, super early on. But there is a lot of strong timings. If you take like both boars and you're on deer, your food income is like through the roof, and you can just spam and produce quite a lot of units on it.
Abbasids, they will love having 4 boars on this map.
Yeah. I mean, if the game plays out a certain way, it's not only 2 boars on your side. You can actually go and take your opponent's boars. Sometimes the opponent's boars are pretty far away, and you can just build a wooden fortress and get those as well. Which, again, it's a crazy amount of income. But this is a matchup that used to actually be very Rus favored back in the day, but we haven't seen a lot of Rus, except in this tournament. But in the previous tournaments, we haven't seen Rus in a while. And this is a matchup where Rus is better in feudal, if they decide to engage. But once Abbasid reaches castle, we'll have the Compsibo arrows on the archers that are just really, 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 really good. So that's where Rus will struggle.
Well, we have 1.5 minutes left to go until game number 3 here. Vortix with a 2-0 lead. He has had a great run in these recent tournaments as well. Previous round, he took out Divine. He actually won a very tough group as well. he was in the same group as I Am Magic, Numadon, and Flash, was able to come away with a 3-0 setup, only having lost 2 games out of those best of fives.
Yeah, and so far Vortix doing pretty good. And coming into this one, I mean, even let's say Vortix does lose this game, right? He has 2 of his home maps. And this is, guys, sometimes in AV4, home map doesn't mean much, right? Like my home map is Dry Arabia, boo-hoo, right? It doesn't mean much. Everyone plays Dry Arabia. But these maps are very, very specific maps. And I know that Vortix has played a lot of Canal and Cavasan. I'm sure Mista has as well, but if you look for the past year, Vortix has way more experience, and I think those maps are much better for Vortix than they're for Mista. So even if Mista gets the win here, it's going to be very, very difficult for him, I think, to win the rest of the series.
Only 30 seconds left to go, and once we have this series conclude, whenever that may be, we will bring you the entire series, the final quarterfinals between B and Louis MT. A bit of a surprise name in the top 8, Louis MT making it there, but definitely not something that was fully unexpected, seeing how good he was recently.
Yeah, I mean, he did place top 8 in the previous tournament as well, and Louis is one of the players that improved quite a bit, and you can kind of see the practice and hard work paying off more and more, which is it's really nice. So it's exciting to see him, and excited to see how he's gonna perform against B.
In we go into game number 3. Mista with the Ruse. Right now facing off against Vortix's match point, who has the Abyssids over here. On a map that we don't commonly see in tournaments, Tempe, you kind of highlighted this. We have 4 boars out there. It remains to be seen how many of those Mista will take.
And I gotta say already, that is disgusting boar plus deer right there. That should be illegal right there. I mean, if he puts a town center there, there's actually berries right there too. So he's gonna have deer, boar, berries, and right behind that, there's another deer pack. So that is a very, very nice spawn. On the other side, Vortix has his deer forward, and he has his berries forward. Wait, actually, where's Vortix's third berries? Is his third berries the one to the left?
Great question. Let's see.
Those kind of look like on Mista side of the map. I think his is all the way to the left next to the trade, which is, I mean, I would say pretty unfortunate for him. So his only 3 food sources are all forward from his base. So I don't know what his game plan is. Obviously, trade is not going to be looking too hot. He is going economic wing, which is, I'm assuming, multiple town centers, but he's going to have to fight for the food sources.
Yeah, Mista is mining some stone, chopping some wood already. With the Golden Gate age up, I could see him buying some stone and just dropping an extra TC, or he might just, mine enough stone for a TC in itself. But having that wooden fortress right from the beginning means that you will have that wood income that you need for that extra TC early on.
Yeah, and there we see Golden Gate comes in, TC comes in. That is
what?
Why is he placing it there?
That is an awkward-looking town center.
Yeah, he can 100% put it between the deer there. And then the boar is also not in range, so I'm very surprised about that positioning.
I'm wondering if he scouted this entire part of the map, because it feels like he just dropped the TC where it felt okay-ish, but he definitely had this scouted. I'm so confused about this, Beasty.
Yeah, he's gonna have to build a hunting cabin. And also the boar will not be protected from... Oh, that scout is dead. Oh, maybe not.
Ripperino.
He's like, go home, it's okay. Now the funny part is, the second deer pack for Vortix has a boar on it. So Mista could pull the boar and kind of... Oh, that's... Okay, a little donation of 5 sheeps from Vortix to Mista. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And 4 TC for Vortix right now.
Oh, classic Abbasid gameplay over here. Mista stops at only 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the, the classic Abbasid. You go 2, I go 3 or 4. You go 3, I go 4 or 5. So it just kind of never ends. And I'm a little bit worried for Vortix. He might decide to go super early farms, but he didn't even place one of his town centers on the other wood line. He just kind of placed them all on the same wood line. And right now, if I missed that, I'm looking at this map, I would try to probably target that. But also, Vortix might decide to just rush castle. That's something we've seen from him playing English. So we'll see what he decides to go for.
Walls are coming up on the northern side for Mista. Kind of securing that large gold mine. He's also going to wall off the other side. Kind of wants to concentrate all the attention towards the middle. But I don't really see any signs of him trying to play into that old school, full feudal age push of the roost that we've seen so many times back in the past.
Oh, there it is. He's launching them up. 2 knights are coming out. Archer range being built. Yeah, I thought he's going for castle because he had 600 food and like 400 gold, but he is getting all the eco upgrades and he's starting the knight production. And Vortix, once again, he's going for multiple town centers and looks like it's just going to be a straight up castle rush with no units. And the way he's setting up his TCs is going to make it very hard for Mista to do anything in this situation.
Especially because once you get Castle Age for Vortix, if he goes up with the military skull, he is going to have 2 camel riders that can deal with initial knights. And critically, Vortex scouts the production buildings. He now knows what Mista is cooking up.
Yeah, now, I mean, Mista's resources are climbing quite high. So he might be like feigning aggression where he's like, oh, look, I have production. I'm building an archer range. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But it looks like it will be a fast castle just with a few units. He might be trying to fake out Vortex. He might be just trying to make a few units to put some pressure. But he is making, a lot of walls behind it. So it makes me wonder if he's going to try something crazy like Imperial Rush off of this. But it definitely doesn't seem like he is going to commit like you mentioned earlier. So
he's literally walling his entire base in. Not a single tiny gap left here. I mean, if you want to play aggressive, that's not what you usually do.
yeah, and the funny part is, maybe he wanted to build a couple of units and force Vortix to build production, but Vortix literally built nothing. He's only building stuff now. He just rushed castle, so he is enjoying his Abbasid boom, and we already see barracks coming out. Some spearmen are coming out, so the Abbasid economy will be extremely strong. And if you look at the worker count, it's already looking pretty rough.
I love how Mista walled off most of those relics, though. Both relics on the flanks right next to the cliffs, those have been walled on Mista's side, so Mista should have no trouble getting at least 3 relics, perhaps 4. But as you said, Vortex is already pulling away with the economy otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing to note, by the way, Mista kind of stole one of the big goals. The 2 side goals, I mean, one is Vortex's and one is Mista's, right? And he walled off both of them. So if this game, turns out to be a long one, Vortex will be the one running out of gold first, assuming he doesn't, start the trade. And Mista's just going around, killing all the boar, getting that bounty above 500, and he's going to place a little tower maybe here for some vision. But yeah, that's going to be in range of that scout, so don't think that's going to be working.
Yeah, there's a knight here to push away the scout, though. That's the only scout Vortex has. This time around, he pulls it away, so he's going to live to see another day. Mista may have seen some of those spears, though. He might have seen that Vortex is very heavy on the spears.
I mean, Vortex just wants to make sure, he doesn't take too much damage against all these knights. And we see stables as well. So Vortex is actually going for Spearman, Camel Rider, and Knights, which is a little bit surprising to me that, he's not... I mean, that is kind of like a Vortex, style to do, to just be very, very aggressive. But I'm very surprised not to see just masses and masses of archers, just like you would in, normal Abbasid gameplay.
It's definitely surprising. It's not like there is... Oh, bit of a fight here. Camel Riders will push away the knights here. One villager fell victim to them, but that's all that Mista could get out of this. It's not like Mista has a sizable army, though. He's got a handful of archers, a few crossbows. Neither of these players has a very convincing army, so to say.
And I actually wonder how much has Mista seen from the production of Vortix because yeah, I don't think he's actually scouted the mass stables at all, and you can kind of see Vortex keeping his army back, and I wonder if that's because he knows that Mista hasn't seen it yet. But this is one of those armies where if you haven't seen it, and we see Mista's producing archers and he's producing crossbows, which is all fine, but this amount of just melee units and cavalry will completely overwhelm your army if you get caught.
For now, Vortix is just queuing up more spears. A handful of knights have been added as well. He's going rams. Wants to go heavy on the infantry. He's getting boot camped now. On the other side, Mista's got a bit of everything, but most of his army is going to be just crossbows and knights. Neither of them are great against spears.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, this amount of spears can kill his whole army, like, on its own. And then you add knights and you add camel riders as well. And Mista is committing to more knights, which I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. Not to mention, Mista does not have +1 range damage. He has +1 ranged armor because I think he was expecting that he will be facing the archers.
Yeah, and he doesn't even have melee defense either, so those spears, they'll be functional against those crossbows. For now, walls are being held though, and Vortix is just gonna have to bail on this. He will likely try a new angle as Mista now starts adding a lot of men-at-arms alongside the crossbows.
Yeah, I think I like that choice. At least I think he just recognized, like, oh yeah, I should not be making knights into this because there's camel riders, there's knights, and there's spearmen. So what are you actually killing with those knights, right? Like, you're just getting countered from the get-go. So I like to switch into men-at-arms. I'm not sure if it's going to be on time, but I like that Mista is staying defensive behind walls. He's not trying to fight. He's not trying to go outside. And against this melee-heavy unit comps, there comes a time where you have like the critical amount of ranged units and you actually are winning the fights all of a sudden. That mangonel is not being built. It's just chilling for now.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what Vortix is doing over there. Ram is chilling, Mangonel now being built. Once the Mango comes out, this is going to be painful for Mista. He's got no Springolds, and right now the only thing that's separating him from being overrun by the spears is that layer of walls plus the villagers repairing them.
Yeah, and right now he's got 27 crossbows. That is a lot of crossbows. But I think, yeah, the most dangerous player right here in this whole army is that one Mangonel, because he does not have enough men-at-arms to dive it. Well, unless he runs it into knights, then that's pretty good. But yeah, I think he actually needs to make a Springald. This one Mangonel will cause more harm than I think all the spearmen combined, because those ranged units are going to be so susceptible to actually just getting completely destroyed with 1 or 2 shots.
Yeah, there goes the High Trade House. Next on the line is going to be the Town Center. Mista will soon have to fight this if he doesn't want to lose a significant portion of his base. But now Vortix is mixing in some horsemen as well. He's actually close to pop cap compared to Mista's 140 population. It's looking worse and worse here for Mista. He's still building knights into this, actually. He stopped producing men-at-arms. He's so heavy on the crossbows. Has the first Springald in queue, though.
Yeah, another Springold's coming out, so that's very nice for him. And funny thing is, Vortix cannot make a Springold now, so I guess that's one good thing. Vortix is also on the berries right in front of Mista's base. We already see that he, I think, got one of the... Oh no, that's the first berry patch. He's making a keep. He wants to secure the food. He did get all the food on his side of the map. He's transitioning to farms, but here we go with the engage.
Big fight unfolding over here. Spearman just committing against the TC here. Vortix does not care about the crossbows up until this moment. Big mangonel shots land on the top of the crossbows though, and this is just a flood of infantry. Not something that Mista has the composition to fight against. The Spearman with the Phalanx just seem to overwhelm all these crossbows. Mangonel, as you said, it's doing so much work. And with the Springald gone, but the Mangonel still intact, Mista seems like he's just got no tools to deal with this army.
Yeah, and you can see the 4 town center boom. It doesn't do anything until it does way too much, and he gets completely overwhelmed. And like I said, Vortix is already transitioned to farms. Meanwhile, Mista has, I think, 0 farms. So you can see his economy is running around. It's idle right now. The relics that he got are also now destroyed in the monastery. Oh, the mangonel shot is disgusting, and he's getting completely cleaned up.
GG is called here by Mista. Vortix, confident as ever. 3-0's Mista over here moves on to the semifinals. A very decisive series, Beasty, from Vortix. You really felt like it's not just the confidence, but he really was on point with everything that he did here.